things to get out of the way to begin with. Number one, I'm very opinionated. Okay, so understand that. Number two, I am a farmer. I'm not a public speaker. Number three, I'm going to offend somebody in this room, so I'm going to apologize up front. It's going to happen. All right. There's just no way around it. Just kind of the way it works. And Mel, I appreciate you showing us Blake does clean his underwear. So I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. So just going to give you a quick overview and understanding this is what we do on our farm in north central Indiana. This doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work on your farm. It's just to spur on some ideas and show you where we've been, where we're going, and how fast we need to move. And we just can't get there fast enough. So this is north central Indiana right here, this picture. This is us combining wheat last year. And we don't have wheat in our area as a commonplace. I mean, talk to the guys who've been down in our region, it's corn, soybean production. And so we just don't have wheat very often. But we've decided to put wheat back in the rotation so that we can get cover crops in behind it. Diversity is the key for us. That's what we're finding. And we can't get there fast enough. I mean, I wish we had 2 or 3 more cash crops that were profitable that we could come in and bring corn and soybeans out a little bit and do less acres of those and still be profitable. You know, if we could really manage it, I'd like to do a third wheat, third corn, third soybeans. But, you know, equipment, management, and then our land usage cost is out of this world. It's just unbelievable how expensive our ground is. So just give you a reference point of where I'm at. The star is where my farm is located. We're actually, all of our runoff, like the doctor was talking this morning, our runoff goes to the Wabash River, which goes to Ohio, the Mississippi, and then on down to the Gulf. So we're just on the south side of the Wabash River. So we farm 3,900 acres in a corn, soybean, wheat rotation. Been no-tilling since 2000 and cover crops since 2006. We took it on probably 6 years ago or so to try to cover every acre on our farm with cover crops. And it was a daunting task. It was difficult at first. And now it's just commonplace. Give you a little idea on our soils. They're fairly flat. We do have some gentle rolling soils. They're poorly drained naturally, and we do have to use tile drainage, a lot of clay content. And we do typically have low organic matters. And I kind of say that in tongue-in-cheek because, you know, that was inherited from my father and my grandfather. Naturally, we should have been at that 6%, I think, in our area. But when I took over the farm, we probably averaged 1.6 to 2.2 on organic matters. And so we're closer to 3 to 3.5 now as an average. The speaker this morning, you know, Chris, you know, he had a positive attitude. And his mantra was, I can. Well, mine is, can't isn't a word. Okay? And it's all about your perception and attitude when it comes to cover crops and no-till. So every year is different, and everybody needs to think about what are we going to do next. Because in 2012, we had a drought. You know, we had almost zero crop in our area. 2015, we had 24 inches of rain in 30 days. Okay? So we went from one extreme to the other. And having multiple plans, multiple thought processes in a year, you know, really help us get to that next level. You got to be able to think outside the box. And so, you know, this is one of the hired guys we sent out to check the crops in 2015. It's not really, I just found it on the internet, but it was a good thing. So I'm going to hit on a lot of things in my talk here about what we do and what I think is important in establishing cover crops, working with cover crops, and what we see. So in our area, we're south of I-80 for reference and north of I-70. So we don't get those great snows off the Great Lakes. We get a lot of the cold winds. And so with no protection on the snow, we have to really watch when we seed our cover crops to make sure that they'll overwinter, get a good establishment. So in our area, in August here, our average high and low is 82 and 61. That's the average, okay? So if you seed your cover crops about that time in our standing cash crops, we're typically got some good growing weather yet to go. As you see, as we work our way down here, all the way to November 1st seeding, we lose a lot of temperature. And I didn't put it in this slide, but if you figured it up, we lose over an hour of daylight on the front and the tail end of this as well. So when you really think about how you want to seed your cover crops, you know, if you wait till harvest is completed, and in our area we typically do get done about that November time frame, November 1st, we've lost just a significant amount of daylight and temperature to get these things growing. And that really hampers our effort to get them to overwinter. So just some things to think about. Seeding method, I mean, everybody has their opinion. I really don't care. My goal is to get the acres covered, okay? And so this one up here is the plain, and we do a lot of acres with the plain, not only on our own farm, but we do a lot of custom acres for guys in the community. Typically run, you know, that $12 to $13 an acre. This is our high boy seeder. We own one. We don't do a lot of custom acres with that, but you wouldn't get me to leave the farm for less than $12 or $14 an acre. It's just the way it works. So just kind of keep that in mind. Drilling, those rates are from Purdue University, which I don't reference them much because I don't have a lot of use for them. But this did come from their recommendations. So, and double spreading, some guys will double spread, you know, double fan spread, you know, their share rye or whatever to get it done behind harvest. But typically we stick with the first two options. This is a friend of ours down in Indiana, Jamie Scott, who we have a herbicide test plot with, and I'll talk about that a little later on. But the important thing is to look at the rapeseed here. Okay, so on the left-hand side, that is drilled rapeseed in our plot, and this is broadcast rapeseed in our plot. Okay, so it was obviously seeded at different times, but taken out of the same herbicide strip. So what I kind of just wanted to show in this is, would you rather have a rapeseed like that, a rapeseed plant like that, or like this? And it's obvious you want a better looking rapeseed with a better taproot. I mean, Jamie doesn't do it justice because he's only about 3'6", but, you know, and he's not here to defend himself, so I feel bad. Not that bad, but a little bit. But anyway, the point is, if you did everything and drilled in this particular scenario, you would have had a lot of small cover crops. Whereas if you get them seeded earlier, like on the right-hand side here, you have a lot of opportunity to get better growth and get things established so they're going to overwinter well. So just something to think about. You know, everybody's scenario is going to be different. I've had a lot of questions on seeding soybeans. And one of the questions that comes up is, when do you seed them? You do it at leaf drop, you do it after planting, when do you do it? So we do a lot of foliar feeding on our soybeans throughout the year. And so we've got a lot of tracks in our fields that are always on 90-foot centers. Well, our seeder we set up to do 90 feet as well so that we could always stay in the same tracks, so that we were hoping not to do a lot of damage to the soybeans. But as you can see, the soybeans are dead green. So our rule of thumb for seeding soybeans in the fall is when we get to that, you know, the beans are really, really dark green and they go to that light pale green, just getting ready to start kick over, that you know they're getting ready to start turning, that's when we start seeding soybeans, because it does take us time to get over all the acres with that machine. We can only do about 500 acres a day really effectively. But understand that the only trouble we run into with going earlier is the risk of the cover crop getting too good, okay? Which means you could just cut too much off in the sickle bar when you're harvesting. But this typically works really, really well, and we've gotten along good. The cover crop will get established, but it's not going to take off like gangbusters until the leaves fall off and you're ready to harvest, and then it's going to kick into high gear. So, again, he really doesn't fly into the grain bin. It was just a photo opportunity. But you can see that the point is the soybeans. It doesn't matter how we're putting them on. We're doing them when they're dead green. And we've had a lot of success that way. And it doesn't mean it's going to work in your area, but in our area, we see economic benefit to getting them seeded earlier. Okay, these things cost money, and I want the most bang for my buck. Okay, the most rate of return. And incidentally, you haven't heard anybody up here today talking about bushels. Okay, it's all about the bottom line, the ROI. That's all we really care about. This is a picture from the combine seat. You can see all the green in between the rows. This is what we like to harvest on. We want that nice carpet to harvest on. Okay, so everything we try to do has been, except from behind our wheat, has been seeded ahead of harvest. Works very, very well. Again, you can see the corn, it's dead green when we're flying it on. Okay, this particular picture was taken in 2009, and in 2009 we had exceptionally good corn, but on November 1st in 2009 it was still 30% in dead green top to bottom. Okay, so we knew going in before that the only way we were going to get cover crops on that year was with a plane, because there was no way we were going to be on time and harvest. So I don't care what magazines say about dead to the ear leaf or whatever, they're all wrong. It doesn't matter. The color of the corn does not matter. I'm just here to tell you that. And if I offended anybody, I don't care. So just kind of give you a reference point on the corn. This is what we like to see. I want that nice green mat, at least in my operation, to drive on. Okay, I want to be able to harvest and not worry about if we got an inch of rain the day before. I want to be able to go out and shell my corn when I need to shell the corn. Okay, our tires on our combine are set up to run on the row. So between that and the fact that we've got all this nice green down here that's here before we harvest, we've got all that root mass that's going to hold up the combine. So in the worst we're going to do, I think it was 2 years ago, we had an extremely wet fall. And the worst damage we did to any field was we did leave a couple lug prints in areas. Okay, I can live with that. It's not ideal, but in certain circumstances I can live with that. So I want that nice carpet to farm on and keep that soil armored and protected all year. I don't want this. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but all these ruts, that's my brother-in-law's field. Okay, I can make fun of him, so because he's not here either. So he farms about 4,000 acres north of us, about 15 miles, and it's 100% corn. They're 100% maximum tillage. So they have big 512 disc rippers, and they rip everything to 15 inches deep. And this particular year, where you saw my green fields that didn't look tore up, this is what he did. Every field, all the way across the field. Okay? And what's interesting was he has the same combine, the same tires on his combine. And when they would go into the field, they'd sink to that 15 inches, and then they'd get traction and they could go. And so every rut was at least 15 inches deep in that particular field, all the way across the field. And the funny part is I get a kick out of it. He didn't, but I do. Is they went and bought two big massive discs out of Michigan and brought them home because they couldn't get the rippers to fill in the ruts, so they disced them crossways and then come back and ripped them after that. So if you can imagine the fuel and the time, and I had time they were still harvesting, I had time to go take pictures of their farm. So, again, it's the whole systems approach to how we're doing things. And I don't mind making fun of people. This is what we want. This is some of the stuff we've seeded in our soybeans while the soybeans were standing. This is hairy vetch, rapeseed, and annual ryegrass. Okay, and so there's some people that get a little nervous when you mention annual ryegrass. They get a little nervous when you mention hairy vetch. These are things that I think these are two phenomenal cover crops, especially in my region, that are underutilized. And really, I think if people whine about it, they haven't learned properly about it, and they're probably not good managers. Because annual ryegrass in our area is the easiest thing in the world to kill with just a little bit of effort. And again, that's 10 years of me doing it, not going to the co-op and asking them what to do. Okay, so just understand that. But this is the kind of stuff we want. When we can get some legumes like this growing, and there's 3 different things out there. Now 3 is great, 8 will be better, but we've got to get more diversity. But you can just see we've got that soil armored and in real good shape. This is the nodules out of that field. There's not a lot, but you can see we've got little nitrogen nodules on the hairy vetch. Got a little earthworm right there. I'm just digging this up, and at the other end of the field, the sprayer's mowing through. We're getting ready to plant corn in this particular field. But I just kind of wanted to pull up some. Now, it's not anything overly impressive with the golf ball-sized nodules. But again, for as little as this is the first part of April, this particular year. And so for us, we were happy to get some nodulation that's going to feed some microbes and some soil. We're really pleased with that. We've taken that to the next level, and we'll show you in a little while where we're going with that. But and this is the first part of bringing the hairy vetch into the system. This is a cocktail mix we're working on to go on behind soybeans. We've played with this a couple times. We've got some of this out this year, and it looks very promising. You can see the ingredients over here. You know, we've got probably a little bit heavy on the brassicas. We probably used a little bit too much rapeseed and radishes in this particular mix, but was really pleased with how it turned out. And for those of you, I ran out of typing space, but ARG is annual ryegrass. Okay, just for those of you that don't know that. But the nice thing I liked about this, we had a complementary mix. We had a few things that winter killed out, and the rest of it overwinters. And so far, what we've seen this spring, or so far through the winter and the spring, it worked out really well. And so seeding it in soybeans, we even got buckwheat to flower out in this mix. And those of you who've ever used buckwheat, it likes warm weather, okay? And it does do its job very quick. 30 to 40 days, it does its job. But again, for us to have that happen, we were really pleased. So we're moving toward pushing things forward and more diversity in our mixes. And that's our seeder. A buddy of mine, I owned the nitro, and a buddy of mine and I designed this together several years ago and kind of put it together. The idea wasn't not that I wanted to go seed every acre, but the idea was just for us to do some testing, and it's kind of turned into an interesting thing, I guess I'll say. So this is some of the pictures we did in 2014 trying to interseed into some standing corn at V5. This is actually taken on Father's Day that year, and that's what I got to do while my wife and kids were out running around the cornfields. I got to go play in the sprayer. We have had a lot of success, a lot more than I ever thought we would, especially down in our area with this. 2014, we had success not only getting it established, but not hurting our corn yields, actually bumping them slightly. 2015, we had a complete failure. And what I say by complete failure is, I told you we had 24 inches of rain in 30 days. We couldn't float the sprayer unless we wanted to put tile in behind the wheels. So we didn't even get to run the test, and I call that a failure. And then 2016, we had success again. The cover crop lived all summer long in the corn, and did not hurt the corn, I guess I'll say. We saw a bump of a bushel and a ding of a bushel, and so when we averaged the whole plot, there was no statistical difference. So just another avenue we're looking into. I think it's going to have a lot more merit the farther north we bring it, up in your guys' region and Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. There's a lot of testing being done in northern Iowa about this right now because those guys don't seem to think they can make anything work. So we're trying to see if it works up there. But buckwheat, this is something we've been playing with. I hesitated to whether to throw this in there or not to try not to scare too many people. But I decided to go ahead and throw it in at the last minute. So this is a field of soybeans that we planted and then came back and interseeded buckwheat in it. Okay? And our point of doing this was just to see what's the limitation. I was real confident until it looked like this, and then I got scared. I got scared to death, and I'm not going to lie to you. I was really nervous because I thought, well, crud, what am I going to do now? So, a little bit of cobra, and it took care of the problem. And so, unfortunately, I jumped the gun and shouldn't have killed it so quick. What I kept forgetting was, by the time that the beans were going to be up above it, the buckwheat was going to be done, it was going to drop the seed. I was really concerned about intermingling. But the beans were really, really phenomenal, even just leaving until we cobraed them. So I think for long term, this is something we're going to have to look at a little more. We've got plans to do more testing with this year. But anyway, it's thinking outside the box. It doesn't matter what you do. You're going to succeed and fail, and that's kind of the whole point. Some people have said, if you don't fail every year at something new, you're not trying hard enough. Well, we take it to the new level and fail every day. So, I'm going to just show you a couple quick slides here on some of the environments that we deal with that are going to be different than yours, but just kind of put some things in perspective. So this is a ryegrass and rapeseed field that we took a picture of on January the 5th, 2016. You see how green that is? If we'd had golf clubs, we could have played golf out there that day. It was perfect. Okay, it wasn't that warm, but the cover crop was still thriving and going good. And typically that's not the case in our area. That's a picture of our main operation anyway. But the cover crops you can see here were just flawless, and we were just really excited. April the 2nd, I came home from a field day to this. Okay, we had a nice little wet, heavy snow on it. You know, and everybody at that field day said, "When are you going to kill your cover crops? When are you going to kill your cover crops?" It wasn't going to be today. You know, everybody was determined there had to be a date on when we were going to do it. And I just kind of wanted to show that in January, you probably could have killed them. You know, the weather was nice, everything was actively growing. This cover crop isn't actively growing, I can tell you that right now. When it drops below 32, it wasn't going to be actively growing. It was still going to be alive, but it wasn't going to be growing. And then to May 5th. And that's the same cover crop as the first picture. It's just dead now. We sprayed out our ryegrass and our rapeseed and smoked it off clean. No problems. Everything went well. But it just shows you the time frame on sometimes everything's going to be a little different. Some years we will be spraying April the 1st. Some years it's going to be almost May before we get things dead. Incidentally, this last year we didn't plant anything till almost the 22nd of May, which is typically behind for us. So it's just having different plans for different things. I want to bring this up because I had an in-depth conversation with somebody last night, okay? And he says, "I'm crazy," and I probably am. See this right here? That's the planting slot. Fortunately not mine. But a friend of mine sent me these and says, "Hey, that'll be okay, won't it?" He says, "I can't see the corn." Okay? This corn did grow, and the corn did all right. But how many times have you heard guys say, "Man, I got slug problems like crazy"? Okay? Well, when you leave that open like that, that's like a slug interstate. You've just opened it up and invited them to come on down. And that's a big problem. Yeah, the corn will grow in that scenario, especially last year when we kept getting rains. But when the slugs go down there and eat all your seed, it's going to be a little bit more of a problem. So, again, just some simple things to think about and maybe make sure that we're doing it right. I had to show that, especially after last night. Another common misconception in the world of cover crops and things. Okay, so we had the guy that planted too wet with the slot. So I drove by this all summer long going to my dad's house. This is one of the neighbors. And I drove by in the sprayer and I saw this one day and I hit the brakes in the middle of the road and jumped out and took a picture. Okay, I love harassing my neighbors. But if you asked him, it was perfectly dry when he planted in the spring. Except you got tracks going this way, you got tracks going this way. And I think there's an odd set going this way. But this is the planter. This is the big triple four-wheel drive tractor that they worked the ground with. And it looked like that all summer. Even when it was green, you could see that all summer long was the different patterns. Just some simple things that are going to really make a difference. How much compaction did he put right here and right here? I mean, that's just a tremendous amount that he's putting in there. So just kind of keep that in mind, because those mistakes do keep coming back around. We can see them all year long, especially if you know what you're looking for. This is one of the burrs in my shorts that I got this last year because we kept getting phone calls out of Ohio. I don't know who decided in Ohio that Roundup will kill anything, but for some reason they did. And so we fielded a lot of phone calls from guys this year saying, "Hey, our rapeseed didn't die." So this guy planted corn already, and I think he did a little light tillage of some sort. But he had ryegrass and rapeseed out here, sprayed Roundup only. He got the ryegrass, it's gone, but the rapeseed he didn't even set back. Okay, and then it started a big fuss about it was Roundup Ready canola and on down the road. But what those guys didn't understand is all the rapeseed that's used for cover crop comes from the same farm in the U.S. Only one farm. Okay, so it's all coming from the same place out in Idaho. All right, or the originator of it is all coming from the same place. But you look at all this rapeseed here. If he'd have just put a little sharpen in, 2,4-D, something, he'd have nipped it and it'd been done and been over with. But now, when a guy calls you and his corn's up 6 inches tall and his rapeseed is off to the races, what are you going to spray on it? You're not going to spray Roundup again, you know. So, again, it's just some things to think about. When you're putting together your chemistries, your cover crops, I mean, I don't want to answer that phone call, you know, just because some guy didn't listen. So just kind of keep that in mind. Roundup doesn't kill everything. I kind of forgot this slide was in here, but how many people dig root pits on their farm? Yeah, I saw that's a dozen hands in a room of probably 200 and some. Okay, and if you're going to do cover crops, it needs to be about 200 hands. Okay, you see, this is our first root pit probably 10 years ago, and you can see we don't have an overly impressive top growth of cover crops. Okay, but we didn't know what we had until we got down in there and found out our roots were going down about 36 to 40 inches. I didn't know that. I mean, if you'd have told me that was impressive from the top growth, I'd have said, man, you're crazy. It's not that great. So every year we go out and dig root pits on our farm. And it doesn't really matter how deep you go. You just got to get down in there and look. And it doesn't matter how many. You just got to get down there and look. We did tubes where we jammed dirt in them, put seed in them, threw them behind the shop, and let them grow all year. You know, and it just was about seeing rooting depth. This was wheat, this was cereal rye, and this was annual ryegrass. And in our region, it was a no-brainer on what we needed to use in our system. That's not bashing the other two, although I would never use wheat as a cover crop in our region. It's just one of the things that we noticed and found. And so the more we dig, the more we play, the more we find out. So again, I mean, I've spoken at a lot of meetings, and I've had a lot of people come up and say, hey, it wasn't that impressive. It only got to be about 2 or 3 inches tall. And I said, well, what do the roots look like? I don't know. So, you just gotta take it to the next level and do your own work on your farm, because your cover crops are going to be different than mine, and you just need to make sure you understand that and do your own testing on your farm. So this isn't going to probably cross over real well, and I talked to Woody about this last night a little bit. So in the U.S., this is the website we go to for any herbicide questions, okay? And it's in English, it's in, so I know some of the herbicide names don't match up exactly, but the chemical names do. And the reason we like this website, or I like this website so much, is you can search right here by herbicide name, insecticide name, or by company. So if you want to know what Monsanto produces, you type in Monsanto there, or the brand name of whatever you're looking for, and it'll bring up everything that's out there. Okay? Now, Woody told me there's a version of that is it, no, what's the website? Is it program? Yeah, publication 75, he says, is a PDF now for you guys. It's in PDF form. But if you go right here, and after you got your product brought up, and you click in the specimen label, it brings up the whole chemical label for rotational restrictions and everything. And while they're not all extensively for cover crops, some of them cross over. So like canola, rapeseed, you can get the gist of some of those things. And so I recommend to everybody, if you're even thinking about doing cover crops, we always start out checking our herbicide program with our cover crop program. Because the worst thing you want to do if you're going to do cover crops is if you've got everything done in August, you get ready to go get your cover crop seed, and you find out you sprayed something that is not going to allow you to plant whatever you've already bought. So just keep that in mind. This is a very important tool, because there are just flat out some herbicides that aren't going to allow you to plant things. Like Sure Start, you may not know what that one is, but you're not going to plant rapeseed behind Sure Start. It's a 22-month holdout on that. So just understand that. Again, some of the names aren't going to matter. We are 100% non-GMO corn. So for our program, Harness Extra and Impact is our program for our non-GMO corn. Okay, and this was a spring picture of some aerial seeding we did of just straight annual ryegrass. And we got a real good stand. Everything looks good. At the same time, we did some work for the neighbor. Same day, same ryegrass, same lot number, everything. Okay? That's what he got. Okay? It's two miles away. Same day. What I did not know at the time, and I know now, is he sprayed Helix GT late. And at the time, I didn't make the connection, and now we've gotten a lot more research in on it. So, he was not real happy, and then I wasn't real happy, but when I found out, he had Helix, we understood a little bit more. So just kind of keep those things in mind. I'm showing you some of the good things and some of the train wrecks. This is that herbicide plot I was telling you about. So we have issues sometimes with some of the universities down in our area not wanting to jump on the ship with us and ride it into the sunset on cover crops. So we have to do a lot of our own research. And so this is a herbicide cover crop plot where we have 12 corn herbicides and 12 bean herbicides that we're testing, residual herbicides. And they're replicated 4 times each. And I don't spray them. I hire a company to do that. But what I wanted to show you was this right here, this line right here. So you can see right here we have good grasses in the mix, but not very good broadleafs like the rapeseed. And over here we got great rapeseed, and the grass is a little bit, dinged. That's a difference in a herbicide treatment right there, one side to the next. Now don't worry about my unmowed walking paths that I kind of get behind on. But the point is, there's a difference there. And that's all. The only difference there is all planted the same day. It's just a herbicide treatment. It's different. We let it go on up to maturity, and you can see it right here. You got great rapeseed right here. You got good grass here, but a lot less rapeseed on this side. Okay, so we're in the second. We've just completed the second year, pretty much, of that trial, and getting ready to start the third year. Our plan is to run that at least 5 years. And so the good thing is I don't even know where any of this stuff is out here. We go out and rate it along with the company that's doing the work. So it's kind of like, for us, it's a double blind. So I can't say, well, if I don't like Helix GT, which I don't really care, but if I don't like it, can't hold a bias to it because I don't even know where it's sprayed out here. They're the only ones that knows where it's sprayed. So it's kind of like a double blind study. But I will tell you this, that once you figure out where some of these strips are in the plot, well, you can come over here and find it again, and it's just a numbered stick out there. So they're just numbered by, and they're randomized, so they're not sprayed in a straight line. So everything's, randomized out there. It works out really well for the blind study. So anyway, and there's 2 seeding methods out here. You saw before him holding the rape seeds, the plants. So it's broadcast and drilled, so we can simulate both of those. We know then how things react, because we also know some of the herbicides flush out just in that extra 30 to 40 days. So real quick, going to get on to some of the things that we've worked on our farm too. We do a lot of biomass testing on our farm to see what we're pulling out of the soil and holding. So the first speaker talked about what's going into the Lake Erie watershed. We are also concerned about what's going into watersheds and doing our part and trying to prove a little bit on our side. He's proven what's in the lake and how it's going up and down. I'm trying to prove what we're pulling out of our soil or holding in our soil or in our cover crops. So basically, this is just a biomass report, and this is the cover crop. This is a fall time or a early winter, late fall time report, and you can see the cover crop. This was just annual ryegrass and rapeseed. And this particular test we went out and took at the end of December, so the 22nd, 23rd of December. So I have 4 children. You get around Christmas time, everybody gets jacked up on candy. And so Dad goes out and starts doing testing so I can get out of the house. So we had about 49 pounds of nitrogen, according to this report, in the biomass that we'd scavenged in the fall already, okay, behind a soybean crop. Okay, so to also set the stage, we do not do anything in the fall as far as nutrient management. Okay, we don't spread fertilizer, we don't put nitrogen on. So everything that is represented in that nitrogen is all just pulled up from the soil by the cover crop. So we just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that. And you can see then, we didn't take them on out to poundages in this particular plot, but we were capturing everything that's out there. We're holding all nutrients and recycling them back in the system. So that one is in this particular field is in December. The same field here we did in April again, okay? And we were up to 57, 58 pounds of nitrogen we had scavenged. Again, we hadn't put anything out there, but we keep pulling all winter long. That cover crop, even though it may brown off a little bit, is still working underground. As long as those roots are below the frost line, we're going to continue to get action out of that plant all year long, or all winter long. And so I just wanted to kind of show that we are getting nitrogen held and without actually applying anything, and we're recycling that back in our system. This is the one I was telling you earlier we've been playing with hairy vetch. And so we mixed a little cereal rye in with some hairy vetch and drilled it in September after some early beans were off. And this is a picture of the field here. And we were just tickled to death. And then everybody else was scared to death. A lot of guys in our area don't really appreciate hairy vetch. But in April the 6th of last year, we took a biomass sample and we had 120 pounds of nitrogen. Okay? And that stuff was only about this tall. We weren't even anywhere close to bloom. We weren't close to full maturity. And I really think had we let that go till the 1st of May, when we probably would have been a lot closer to bloom, we probably would have been a lot closer to 200 pounds of nitrogen. But as everything happens, I do farm, so some of the tests kind of come to as when I have time, and we didn't take that one on out to fruition. But again, if we can produce 120 units of nitrogen, that's pretty substantial. We were already cutting back our nitrogen because of the 50 pounds that we're scavenging. Now, if we can go producing it, we've got some pretty cool things. So we're going to be doing a lot more testing with this after seeing what we saw on the corn, just dead green all year long. We're just tickled to death. So I told you we threw wheat back into the rotation. This is why we put wheat back into the rotation right here. And it was a cocktail mix. There's 16 or 17 species out here in this. You got sunflower, sun hemp, sorghum, Sudan grass, and they're almost all of them are warm season. And that's why we put them in behind the wheat so we can get, 16 other species that we're not going to get probably throughout the course of our normal rotation in a normal season. We can get them and get them to grow and get the energy out of them and put it back in the soil. So, all we're doing is harvesting sunlight, putting it back in the soil in a different form, and a lot of carbon to do. So, you just look at that. Now, you have to, you may appreciate this, you have to understand our community. Everybody in our community are ground pounders. Okay? And I say that with all the love because my father used to be one. But that's the truth. They go out twice in the spring, twice in the fall, and they pound the ground to death. So when you throw this into the community, everybody want to know what you're doing. Want to know if we're starting a dairy to chop. And we've been up and down the gamut. We finally told them we had the newest, latest medical marijuana. Okay? We had the corner to market on it. So you can imagine, and even for myself, the first year we did this, I was a little bit nervous going to think I was going to plant corn in that come springtime. Okay, so you just, again, a few things to think about. That's what it looked like when we frosted off. Okay, so everything was dead. All the warm season stuff was dead with just a frost. But we still had all our cool season stuff underneath. We had our radishes were still growing. They hadn't froze out yet, and some of the clovers were still going. But here's where I'm really concerned about now. So my grandfather, when he was in his prime farming, farmed, had cattle, had hogs, chickens. Everything was broke up. We had corn, soybeans, wheat, oats, pasture, clover, place for the manure, place for everything. And everything got rotated around. So every year something different was on that field, and we had a lot of diversity. We had a lot of manures put on things, a lot of natural things going on. He also grazed his cattle behind that corn and hay crop and things like that. Okay, the only thing I would disagree with my grandfather today on the way they used to farm was that he was pretty well stuck to the moldboard plow because they didn't necessarily have all the technologies that we do today. But I think that's where we got to go back to some degree. It's all diversity. We do have to bring the cattle back in the operation. We've got it, for the grazing purposes, but just just for the diversity. We've been 5 years without putting P&K on of a commercial sort. We haven't been putting lime on of any sort other than our chicken litter. So we have been using some chicken litter, and that has P&K, and it has calcium in it. But what I noticed was when we were putting on P&K that was mined, and we were putting on high-cal lime, everything just kind of did this in a straight, steady line. We never really raised anything, and we never let anything drop out. Okay? So then we switch. I get antsy. I switch. We stop. We go to chicken litter. And we're not putting high rates of chicken litter on. Matter of fact, what we just completed a couple weeks ago was all variable rated at only 500 pounds to the acre. And some places got nothing, because what we saw was in just a 4-year cycle, which would have been, we were spreading half the ground every year. So in 2 complete cycles, took 4 years to do it. Things went from here to, oh my gosh. We've got fields or in spots in the fields that the lime now, or the calcium readings and the pH readings went too hot too fast. And we weren't putting on a bunch of chicken litter. It was just a nominal rate of 2 tons every other year. So and the same thing happened with our P and our K. Things went up, and a lot faster than what I anticipated. And what I think I neglected to remember was that we got the system cooking. So they'll get the whole soil biological system cooking. We got it recycling everything in and out of the system. And so now, what we spread this year was we spread 0 or 500 pounds of chicken litter. So again, places got nothing, some places got 500, because there's still places in the field that we need to continue to work on and build up. But my next question, even to myself and to everybody else, is, so what if we bring the cattle back into the operation? And there's guys throughout the country that are doing this and making it work really well. Well, if I saw on my own farm that a more organic fertilizer changed my soils dramatically, maybe if we bring the cows out there, I don't need to buy that chicken litter. And now I can sell the cows or rent the ground to somebody that has the cows. And, there's a lot of feed value right there. It's really good. And it's something I think we all need to really look about in the whole realm of diversity, because we didn't start out here. If you'd have showed me that 10 years ago, I'd have laughed and walked out the room. Okay, but we've come a long ways, but I think we've got a lot of work to do on this. Incidentally, a couple things that I wanted to point out about this, and I didn't throw any pictures in about it, but last spring I went out into this mix, and every radish and every turnip had 2 to 3 slugs on it apiece. The radishes and turnips were dying, and we had slugs all over them, and I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done now? Okay, and I thought, boy, we're in trouble. The other thing I saw out here, I couldn't walk without stepping in a vole hole, and that made me nervous, because I've never had any of those problems ever on our farm. What you can't capture in this picture is all the natural predators and things going on out here. So when we planted this field, we had no vole damage, and I couldn't step without hitting a hole before. But what was interesting was, in this field here, we had hawks all day, every day, and by the hundreds over that field. And it's not like they were just hanging out waiting for us to plant the cocktail mix. It's because they had a food source and they came to it. And I'm not exactly sure what took care of the slugs, but we had no slug damage in our corn when we planted our corn. And I even went out and checked, because I said, man, as many as they are, it's going to be smoked off. It's going to eat all our corn. And we didn't have any damage, didn't see any problems. So, again, and I'm not a scientist, I'm just a farmer, so the natural way seems to be working quite nicely, because we didn't spray that field with insecticide, we didn't do anything different with it. So, other than what you see right there and letting it decay down even farther. So, there's something to be said about that, and I really encourage everybody to think a little bit outside the box in some of those things. I think we all need to really go that way. And then a real quick little story. So these are my boys. They're now 13 and 15. Okay, that picture was taken 10 years ago probably. and out in our front yard. And the cool thing is, those guys don't know what tillage is, because we were no-tilling before they were born. Okay, so if they want to see a big tractor and something that turns the dirt over, I'd take them to my brother-in-law's house. Okay, let them ride around out there for a little bit. But so they don't know. So my father grew up in the ground pounding era, and so a local tractor club had an antique plow day. Okay, out and just down the road, local community thing. They had 80 acres of bean stubble that they were moldboard plowing. And so they had all the old tractors out there, and they had some 1 bottom and 2 bottom and 3 bottom plows. And you know, some of them are set right and they're plowing down there. You got some of the guys that think they're plowing right because they've got too big a plow on their old tractor. And so we're walking around with the boys, and the boys are, you know, about 9 seconds of interest in what's really going on out there. And so they get to crawling around the dirt. And we're following these guys as they're plowing, and it's just really cool. What I noticed real quick is that soil just came out and it crumbled, and when it crumbled, it was square cubes. And I don't mean the kind of crumble like soil structure. I mean, it looked like little clay bricks. And my boys are walking around, and my boys, you know, they love playing in the dirt. They were so distraught and so upset. And if you ask them about that day today, the only thing that stuck in their mind was they couldn't find a worm in 80 acres that we walked around. They could not find one worm anywhere on that farm because it was so beat up, and those old-timers were having a great day out there, and I'm glad for them. But that farm was so abused that these guys couldn't find a worm. And so what's interesting to me is just from a different perspective, is now we'll go someplace and we'll see a guy out tilling or doing something. And my oldest son, who's Thomas right here, he's very matter-of-fact like his mother, and so he flips out and says, "Man, why are these people so stupid?" Okay? If I'd have had him here today, he could do this talk in a heartbeat, and he'd even be more rude than I am. So, but I'm glad, because this may be, you know, being 13 and 15 now, in a few years they may have the interest to come back into the operation. I don't know. But if they do, they've already got that seed has been planted that there's only one option here. You know, maybe they can take the farm to the next level, because all of what I'm doing on our operation is they're going to see more of the benefits than I am, by far. I mean, we've already seen a lot. But if they continue on in the next 20, 25 years, it could be something awesome. So with that, that's about all I've got. If you guys got any questions or anything?
Again, we're looking for any questions. If you have them, hold them up. There's a few cards up.
I really won't make fun of you, I promise.
So I've got 2 questions from you on the first one here. I'll ask the one and then I'll wait and ask the second one. First question, simply, why non-GMO corn?
Okay, that's an easy one, but it's a good one. Where I'm located at, I'm an hour north of Indianapolis. And in Indianapolis, there's a company called Ingredion that grows food-grade waxy corn. And they pay me a really good premium to grow it for them and haul it to them. And that's the number one reason we got away from any genetics in corn or any technologies was all about the money. This will be the first year, 2017 will be the first year we're not on that waxy program, and we're still growing 100% non-GMO corn. And it all falls back to just economics. I can buy the seeds so much cheaper. And because of our cover crops and the way we do things, our weed pressures are so much lower, economically it just rules out. And back when we were growing, even back when we were growing triple stack corn, we had to have that refuge, blocked off where they had that great refuge in the bag. It was always as good or better than our triple stack corn. And so if you jam a trait, and for us, when you're jamming traits into things, all it's going to do is eat more energy up to use them. So if you don't have a problem, why do you need, to burn up more energy? So that was our reason.
Second part to that same question sheet here is, do you use biomass reports to decide fertilizer rates?
Say that again.
Do you use biomass reports to decide fertilizer rates?
No, not necessarily. What we're doing with the biomass has all been just a chart at this point. you saw the one where we said, we were at 57 pounds or 58 pounds in the springtime. Consistently, on a normal weather year, we can see 50 to 60 pounds of return on nitrogen. That's just pretty much a static thing over the last 7 or 8 years of testing. The hairy vetch throws a new wrinkle into that. If we're going to have a better stand of hairy vetch, we're going to have to probably investigate how consistent that holds out. If you get an anomaly year, say 2012 when we had the drought, okay, so we were expecting extremely good crops. We put nitrogen on for a good crop, and we had a bad crop because we had no moisture. So when we went out and we did our testing in the fall, in the soil samples, we had 112 pounds of nitrogen still in the soil. Okay, so then when you do your biomass testing in the spring, we had 110 pounds of nitrogen in our cover crop. And it was all from scavenging from the year before. Now that was the anomaly, and knowing that now, we can say, okay, if we have a drought year, we know we can change things. But we haven't been changing our fertilizer program just off of that. We've just been watching it and slowly lowering it as we go.
Okay, I have a couple questions around annual ryegrass here. When do you kill it ahead of corn and beans, and what do you use as far as herbicides and rates to kill it?
Okay, so there is no set time on killing ryegrass. And if anybody tells you that, you need to walk away because they're a liar. Okay? So, and the reason I'm telling you that, it's just simple. I mean, every year is different weather-wise. Some years we're going to kill it in April, and some years we cannot kill it until May because it's just a wet, cold April and you're not going to kill anything. I mean, some guys want to tell you, hey, as soon as the sprayer is not frozen, go out and spray it, and that's exactly the wrong thing to do. Ryegrass, you have to let that get some new tissue in the spring so that you can translocate the herbicide. Otherwise, you might as well just go to Florida and not mess with it because it's just not going to work. Your success rate is going to be much lower. You need to let that plant actively grow. So I don't care. We'll just relate it to your yard, okay? When your yard turns green in the spring, the first time, it doesn't need to be mowed yet, does it? It's just greening up. And then you're going to go out and mow it and kind of level it off, and the second time you come back and mow it, probably when you need to think about spraying. You need 3 to 4 inches of new tissue growth before you can really kill it successfully, in my opinion. And what we're using is just very simple, and it's very straightforward. And this is also where everybody usually screws it up. It's 1 quart of Roundup Power Max. Okay, we use 17 pounds per 100 dry AMS as our water conditioner. Obviously that goes in before the Roundup to condition the water. We don't want to put the Roundup in until the water's all conditioned. We're using 4 pounds per 100 gallons of citric acid. It's a dry product, it's a food grade product from Tate & Lyle. It's food grade citric acid. And that's just to lower the pH of the water. So the AMS conditions the water, but it doesn't do anything to pH, or not enough. And so we need to add the citric acid to get it down to about 5 on the pH. That's where we want to see it. And then we're using, and this is what usually kills everybody, that's how we would just, if it was straight ryegrass, but we always have mixes. So we'll throw in a quart of 2,4-D. And at this point, everybody usually passes out in the crowd and says, holy smokes, a quart of 2,4-D, you can't plant for a month. Well, understand all these labels are probably made for safety. And so I will just tell you, as the proper part of the speech, do what your labeled recommendations say, blah, 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 blah. We use a quart of 2,4-D. Okay? And the reason we do is because we have mare's tail and water hemp in our region. Okay? So the nice boys in the south of us, give us all their weeds in some form or another. They cultivate them up and let them come our way. So if we put a quart of 2,4-D in when we're spraying our cover crops out, we not only get our broadleaf and legume cover crops killed, we also make sure that anything that started, especially since mare's tail or winter annual, they're toast. Anything that started is toast. We started completely clean, and now our residuals will be able to do the work.
Okay, a couple more here. Around the cover crops again, and there's kind of two different questions. I'm going to give them to you together. Have you considered chopping your cover crops, and does the cover crop stain the beans?
Chopping for forage?
Chopping, it does not say. I'll let you go where you want with that one.
Okay, so no, we do not chop cover crops for forage. It can be done. There's no question about it, and I'm sure there's somebody in the room that probably is doing it. We are associated with some dairies down at home that do chop cover crops for forage. Very successful, and in their situation, it's a wise idea because they're in a dairy scenario. If you're in a beef scenario, though, why would you want to chop it? Why wouldn't you just bring the cows to the forage? That's where I think we've got to really start looking at. And what was the other part of that question?
And then the second one was, does the cover crop stain the beans?
Stay in the beans.
Stain.
Stain. Stain. Like color. Sorry.
Yeah, color.
See, I'm dumb, stupid, and deaf, so you got to really. So no, it does not. When you're seeing the soybeans out there, and we're cutting, it's amazing that cutter bar on a sickle bar on the bean head. It just lays that stuff over because it's so tender and green, and it's not like we're cutting into ryegrass or cover crops that are this tall. You know, that even a mature bean plant kind of suppresses that thing from really growing until it gets it out of the way. And we may be cutting an inch of stuff off once in a while, but most of the time it just flexes over. We mow the soybeans right off. It all stands back up, and it just takes off from there. So no, it does not stain the.
Okay. What's the biggest advantage of your system? If you had to put it down to one thing.
Biggest advantage. Boy, that's a tough one. ROI.
Okay.
That's what it is. That's what it's all about. Okay? I mean, I can sit up here and tell you I'm doing it for my kids, and probably we are to some extent. But if I don't make it so my kids can take over, it doesn't really matter now, does it? So, I mean, it's all about rate of return. I mean, I don't care. You know, guys were talking about the coffee shop talk. Tom was mentioning that, about the bushels. I mean, the first liar can't beat the next liar in the coffee shop. Okay, I got 200. Well, I got 210. Great. Well, I got 215. Well, the guy that said he had 200, now I got 230. Okay, so again, you can't beat it. So it's all just ROI, rate of return.
Okay. A question here around corn. What works best in corn? Seeding the cover crop at V8 or later in the fall?
That's tough for me to answer. We've been doing the later in the fall thing, you know, the late into August, beginning of September thing for 10 years. And in our area, it's super successful. We get along very, very good with it. The seeding earlier, the V5, V6 time frame, I believe will have a place in somebody's operation. I'm not sure if it's in my operation, and here's why I'll mention it. In that system, you have to really watch your herbicides to be able to get that V5 seeding done. Okay, you just can't go out and spray any residual herbicide and think that you're going to get a great stand of cover crop. So if you have a lot of noxious weeds in your system and you take out a residual herbicide, I'm not sure if it's going to catch. I can't tell you that it's all going to work and be hunky-dory and perfect. That's the first concern that I have. The next concern is I'm 100% successful, or have been thus far, at seeding when I am. You know, I've already told you I had one failure out of 3, which that means, you know, I'm a 66% rating on my cover crops on that testing. That's not what I call excellent. It's okay, but it's not perfect. So if I can't succeed as often as I can in the other avenue, I'm a little bit concerned. And then the next thing that you bring up to question is, are the roots going to be any better? I mean, I get excellent rooting depth and excellent, I mean, the system works very well the way it is. I don't know that the V5 seeding is going to give me twice as the root mass as what I have. I don't know that it will. So I think it has a place up north of us, north of me. I don't know if it's going to be. We're playing with it to see because I'm curious. But it's going to have to pop out and say, aha, here it is, for me to say this is worth me to switch all my acres over to. The only reason I see right now that we would switch and do that versus the fall seeding, the V5 seeding over the fall seeding, is just to have something else growing out there in companion with the corn. That does interest me. Other than that, I don't think there's any additional benefits for us, anyway, on my operation.
Okay. We had, actually, Woody passed on to me, just for people for translation, a couple of the products and what they might compare to here. So Sharpen, that you mentioned, is basically Aragon here. And Sure Start is a broad strike and Launtrol, plus something that we don't have here, which tends to happen, right? The actives may not all be registered in all jurisdictions. And I think you already gave the disclaimer we have to follow.
Yeah, follow your labels.
Yep.
I won't, but you can.
Yep. Fair enough. With that, I want to thank Cameron for a great presentation, great questions. We successfully went from being slightly behind to being slightly ahead.